Picture this: a serene Ukrainian night disrupted by the unthinkable. April the 26th, 1986, 1:23 a.m. Reactor 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant erupted in a cataclysmic explosion. A radioactive cloud swept across Europe, and the world's worst nuclear disaster unfolded in a matter of seconds. But the real horror wasn't the explosion. It was the aftermath, an invisible enemy lingering in the air, in the soil, in every breath taken by the brave souls who fought to contain it. Today, decades later, Chernobyl remains frozen in time, a grim monument to human error and resilience. Yet, against all odds, life has not only persisted but flourished in this radioactive wasteland. How, and what does it mean for the future of humanity? Before we dive into the heart of this story, quick question. If you had to pick a vacation spot, would Chernobyl make your list? No. By the end of this video, you might just reconsider, or, at the very least, you have a story to tell at your next dinner party. To understand Chernobyl's catastrophic failure, we must first understand its origins. The 1970s were a time of grand ambition for the Soviet Union. Nuclear energy promised a future of unparalleled power and prestige. And so, in a remote corner of Ukraine, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant was born. The RBMK-1000 reactor was touted as a masterpiece of Soviet engineering. But beneath its seemingly flawless design lay fatal flaws. Unlike Western reactors, the RBMK had a positive void coefficient, a design quirk that could lead to catastrophic instability under certain conditions. Despite these vulnerabilities, the plant's construction was rushed. Safety was often compromised to meet political deadlines. Engineers raised concerns, but in the Soviet Union, dissent wasn't just unwelcome, it was dangerous. And so, the stage was set. The reactor was operational, but the seeds of disaster were already sown. But what really happened on that fateful night? April the 25th, 1986. Reactor 4's operators prepared for a safety test designed to simulate a power outage. The goal was straightforward: to determine if the reactor's turbines could generate enough electricity to cool the core in an emergency. But what should have been a routine test soon spiraled into chaos. The test began hours behind schedule. As a result, the reactor's power levels dropped dangerously low. The operators, under immense pressure to meet the deadline, disabled multiple safety systems to bring the reactor back online. What they didn't realize was that these actions set the stage for an uncontrollable power surge. At 1:23 a.m., Reactor 4 exploded. A 2,000-ton lid was blasted into the air, and radioactive material spewed into the atmosphere. The invisible killer was unleashed. But what caused the explosion? And why did it happen so quickly? To answer that, we must delve deeper into the chain of errors that unfolded in those critical moments. In the wake of the explosion, chaos reigned. The first to respond were firefighters from nearby Pripyat. Armed with little more than water hoses, they charged into the inferno, unaware of the radiation seeping into their bodies. One of those heroes was Vasily Ignatenko. He described the fire as a living, breathing monster glowing with an eerie blue light. Vasily and his comrades fought tirelessly, but their bravery came at a cost. Within weeks, many succumbed to acute radiation syndrome. By the way, if you think your job is tough, imagine running toward a fire that could kill you just by standing near it. Perspective, right? Beyond the firefighters, countless others stepped up. Engineers, helicopter pilots, and soldiers each played a role in containing the disaster, knowing full well they were sacrificing their lives to save others. Their courage reminds us of an undeniable truth. Even in the darkest moments, humanity's resilience shines through. But what became of those who faced the invisible enemy? Radiation is an invisible predator. It doesn't burn or sting, but its effects are devastating. In the hours following the explosion, radiation levels near Reactor 4 spiked to 20,000 roentgens per hour, lethal dose in just seconds. Pripyat's 49,000 residents were evacuated 36 hours later. Officials assured them it was temporary. Many left with only the clothes on their backs, never to return. Footage of abandoned homes, children's toys left behind, and eerie silence. But the silent killer didn't stop there. Radioactive particles contaminated crops, livestock, and water supplies. For decades, these isotopes cesium-137 and strontium-90 continued to wreak havoc on ecosystems and human health. For those exposed, the long-term effects included cancer, genetic mutations, and an enduring legacy of fear. So, next time you're annoyed about wearing sunscreen, remember, invisible threats are the deadliest. How can life thrive in such a hostile environment? This question has baffled scientists for decades. Some speculate that the absence of humans, rather than the radiation, has allowed these ecosystems to flourish. Others point to the incredible adaptability of nature, a reminder that life, against all odds, finds a way. But for every story of resurgence, there are lingering reminders of devastation. Trees near the reactor, nicknamed the Red Forest, absorbed lethal doses of radiation. They still stand as ghostly monuments, their vibrant colors long since faded into muted decay. In recent years, the exclusion zone has become a living laboratory. Researchers study its unique environment to understand how radiation impacts ecosystems over time. What they've discovered is as fascinating as it is unsettling. While certain species appear unaffected, others exhibit mutations, some subtle, others more profound. Yet, despite the odds, the zone teems with life, defying expectations and challenging our understanding of survival. But what about the people who refuse to leave? Not everyone abandoned Chernobyl after the disaster. Over 100 residents, mostly elderly women, returned to their homes, defying government orders. They are known as the Samosley self-settlers, who chose to embrace the risks of radiation, rather than live as refugees. For these individuals, the exclusion zone isn't just a radioactive wasteland, it's home. They grow crops in irradiated soil, drink from contaminated wells, and share their lives with wildlife. Their resilience is as astonishing as it is heart-wrenching. And let's be honest, anyone who's lived through Soviet bureaucracy probably finds radiation a minor inconvenience. Remarkably, many of the self-settlers have lived into their 80s and 90s. Their secret? Some attribute it to traditional diets, while others chalk it up to sheer stubbornness. But one thing is clear: the human spirit is unyielding, even in the face of invisible threats. What lessons can we learn from their survival? Chernobyl is more than a disaster site. It's a classroom. Its lessons span science, engineering, governance, and humanity itself. In the aftermath, global nuclear regulations tightened. The International Atomic Energy Agency revamped safety protocols, and many nations re-evaluated their reliance on nuclear power. But Chernobyl also highlights the dangers of secrecy and denial. The Soviet government's initial response, downplaying the severity, delaying evacuations, and suppressing information, amplified the tragedy. Transparency, it turns out, can save lives. Yet, there's hope. Modern reactors are designed with multiple fail-safes, and renewable energy sources continue to grow. Chernobyl's legacy is a stark reminder of the stakes, but also a call to action for innovation. But could another disaster like Chernobyl happen today? Decades after the explosion, Chernobyl remains a site of fascination and fear. It has inspired books, films, and even tourism. But for many, it's a painful reminder of what was lost. Radiation levels in some areas have decreased, making short visits safe. But hotspots remain, and the sarcophagus over Reactor 4, designed to contain radioactive materials, requires constant maintenance. The question lingers: what happens when humanity leaves and nature reclaims the land? Chernobyl may hold the answers, for better or worse. And now, a story of unbreakable resilience. Chernobyl's story doesn't end here. It's a tale of tragedy, resilience, and lessons learned. If you found this journey through the radioactive city compelling, you won't want to miss our next video: how they designed the World Trade Center to never fall again. Click now to uncover the groundbreaking engineering secrets behind one of the world's most iconic structures. Until next time, stay curious, stay resilient, and remember, history shapes the future.